Can we pre-approve this, Brian, before you put it up?
So anyway, I'm sure we'll cover a lot of things that'll probably irritate people, and some guys will agree with. Because anytime you talk about this, there's like these far opposing sides of the fence, and there's some middle of the road. So
I just can't buy into the whole face paint thing. That's so
like special ops. You put it on, you just feel.
But then you got to wash your face.
And then when it came to the shot, it's like, oh my God,
Autopilot.
there's the shot. Autopilot, save me, right? Bung, and off the arrow would go.
And I answered him, but I'm asking you that question.
I want to hear your answer. No, I want to hear your answer.
This is Joe Rogan, and you're listening to the Gritty Bowmen.
All right, folks, welcome to the Gritty Bowmen podcast. I'm your closet host, Aaron Snyder. I'm here with the primary host, Brian Call. We just got back from Alabama, where we had two things, fun and unhealthy food.
Right. Well, unhealthy is a strong word.
Oh, it was unhealthy. It was good. No doubt about that.
A lot of sugar, carbohydrates.
I have type 2 diabetes now.
It was Southern hospitality at its finest. You got to admit, it was Southern food, and It was good.
It was very, very good. But we did manage. I shot some whitetail. I shot does. You shot a buck.
Yep.
We
already did a podcast on this with the guys from the show that people will have heard by now. But today we're going to kind of we never got around to finalizing doing more shows like we said we were going to do.
I was tired a lot. Well, you were tired too, I guess.
I was.
That's my fault, yeah.
I was tired because I was out shooting bucks while Aaron did not.
I know. But you know what? It really tired him out was the mental strain of shooting a subpar-sized buck.
Oh, Lord. We got a little competition going just for fun. The most valuable hunter award.
Yeah.
I think I edged you out.
Yeah, no, I would say, although redoing it again, I would have crushed you. Well, I can't say that because you did have a lot of does.
I passed a lot of does.
And see, I had good opportunities at does that either came in at the end of the sit, or that last light where there was nothing else. So I didn't jeopardize a buck. But I will say, I did pass up probably 4 deer, 3 that were bigger than yours. And I'm looking back now, I was ready to shoot that. If Brian would have given me the red light or green light on the forked horn, I would have passed.
Broderick.
Yeah, Brian Broderick. That last morning, that forked horn with the wind in his face walked under us. I'm like, can I kill it? And he's looking at me. He's like, no. I'm like, are you sure? Did a lap, came back around, and he was like, that thing better not walk under you again. I don't know if I can hold you back, because I was like, 5 points plus 4 more, I would blow by you. But
no, it was all in good fun. Basically, what did you think about hunting whitetails in Alabama?
It was cool. It was good. I liked it better than hunting them in Texas. For one. For the only other reason,
I've never done it in Texas.
Well, and when I say that, I've only hunted one part of Texas, so I can't say all of Texas. So no one of you Texans, I know how defensive y'all get about bigger and better in Texas. But it was cool because it was very well managed, very well maintained. He didn't do anything stupid. He didn't make we drove out in the stereotypical bad boy buggy, but he in and out in the one path. He was very organized with how everything was set up. But not only that, there was deer everywhere.
Lots of deer.
And I like sitting on the field of dreams at night because I like the idea that I can see. It reminds me, I'm up in the high country. I can see down the fairway. I can pick my lie.
Like we were on a golf course.
Oh yeah, it was crazy.
My impressions with Alabama was just I've hunted tree stands and this kind of strategy on blacktail.
Yeah, a bunch. Yeah.
A lot. And so here we are with this other location, similar strategies, but just a different animal, right? And I kind of expected them to be still quite similar.
Yeah.
But I found they're really different. And maybe it's whitetail in Alabama that's different than whitetail in other places in the U.S.
These ones are pretty twitchy. I know that.
You've hunted a whitetail all over. So how did these Alabama whitetail compare to all the other whitetail you've hunted?
They were just more skittish. And I'm not a professional whitetail hunter by any means, but I've hunted a good bit of whitetail. And all of them that have been heavily hunted look up, but what is amazing to me is, giving an example, the second doe I shot was 28 yards, aimed above her, basically at the bottom of her heart, 30-yard pin, bottom of her heart. No idea we were there. Wasn't like she was looking up, right? She fed from 200 yards down the fairway. And then I shot her, and I shot her in the spine. She dropped 18, 20 inches. No idea. Now, is that big of a deal? No, but when you watched her approach the whole way, twitching, looking around like there's a predator coming. Well, and then the bucks, the bucks were worse. They were crazy. And they were dumber now because they're in the rut.
Dude, I agree. So for people who missed the other podcast, we were hunting whitetails in Alabama basically the first week of February.
Yeah.
And it's prime rut time.
Well, it was also the fact that it is February in prime rut should be mentioned. It's insane because
how cool is that?
Well, that hearing the snort wheeze in February is pretty cool,
right? Seeing bucks. I saw 2 spikes, and literally their spikes were they were like half of my pinky digit long,
getting after
little baby spikes, and they went after each other like they were going to kill each other. There wasn't sparring. It wasn't friendly. It was you will die. Faces in the dirt, spinning around, kicking up stuff, just thrashing each other as hard as I've never seen 2 young bucks just go at each other like this before. Yeah. So that was cool. I haven't seen blacktails be quite that aggressive in their fighting. I see them fight and be aggressive. Mature bucks. Never seen little ones. I've seen little ones spar a lot, but I've never seen this. Well, there was some serious hate.
Oh yeah, these bucks. What was crazy is short period of time we were down there, but had a decent buck come through that I probably could have killed, but it was not a dominant buck. But usually in the rut, from my experience, even on a non-dominant buck, if you snort wheeze, they'll at least stop.
Yeah.
Yeah, this thing ran like Usain Bolt. And I didn't do an aggressive snort wheeze, but he didn't look back.
Yeah.
Right? He just blew out. No, another buck came in because I thought, well, maybe it's my snort wheeze.
Right.
And you can't really screw up a snort wheeze. But then another buck came in, to look around, but he was looking scared to death. Well, when this buck came, through, when it stopped, when I snort wheezed at it, I thought, well, let's get some better video. I think you got it on. I think Wes got it on camera.
Yeah.
But
there's some cool video.
Yeah, you don't want to call to these deer much. I found, and I think Brian Broderick told me not to. They don't like the calling much.
What's funny is they're super vocal. Like I heard them grunting and wheezing at each other like crazy, and chasing does all over the place. But again, back to the blacktails comparison.
Yeah.
When blacktail are walking through the woods, and this is in prime rut, most of the time they're deliberate, they're slow, they look around, they're calm.
Yeah.
They're like statues, they freeze. They think they hear something, and then they tiptoe across and they stop.
These bucks are moving.
Whitetail are spastic.
Yeah.
These whitetail are like ADD. They're like hyperactive.
And that is the same with where I've hunted in the rut anyway. They're moving.
They're bouncy and shifty and looking over their shoulder, and they're just like
almost impossible to get a clear shot.
They're amped.
Yep. Yeah, they are.
And blacktail aren't amped like that, dude. They, even when they're getting chased and they're chasing, I've never seen them be as like schizophrenic.
Well, that when I moved my head and we were out sitting on that one, and it was almost dark, and he's like, "That doe's got you pinned." 150 yards out, and I literally was like, and that's hard for me to sit still to begin with, and I was pretty slow for me especially, and I literally got to hear, and Broderick's like, "That doe's got you pinned, don't move," and I'm thinking, are you kidding? I am in trouble this week because I moved more than I probably should. I mean, it's what got me and Wes, and I will say, Wes, if you're listening, I don't know who moved more between you and I, but that one morning I'm certain he and I both, we scared 6 total deer off. And it wasn't that we did any, there wasn't any crazy movement.
Yeah.
It was just we didn't hear the deer come in, and then Wes would do and then there would be a deer 40 yards behind looking up at him. Well, then later on, I would just get, bored, want to stand up. I wouldn't do the look around, the clear, and I'd stand up, and there was a buck, and it's blowing out now, right?
Yeah.
I did shoot at a buck that blew before the arrow got to it. And when I say blew, I don't mean blew out, like blew before the arrow got to it, and the deer was 3 feet from my arrow before it got. I mean, I'm sure I'll get criticized for this, but whatever. I like
It was
to try
only
to tell the
60
truth.
yards, wasn't it?
50.
50 yards. Doesn't that seem like miles away with these deer?
Yes. What had happened, the deer came up, and I didn't think I thought it was 3.5 when I saw it. But when I first saw it, I thought it was a doe going through the woods. And I looked at Broderick. I said, it's a doe. It's coming right under us. Well, it wasn't a doe. It was a buck. And it comes up, and it's 17 yards away, and it's looking up. I would have just toned
Drilled
it
it.
in the chest. But I didn't have my bow drawn back because I didn't think – but it was a good buck.
And for people to understand, like, we're trying to respect Brian's property. Like
4.5 plus.
he has
deer.
this land, and he's really trying not to kill the young bucks. He wants people to take the old folks off the property.
Which, as long as and you can shoot a doe a day, as long as I get to shoot something, I'm fine. So my quote unquote quench for bringing home the bacon is being quenched. So I'm fine with.
Like you're whacking does whenever.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I got a little bit of a Alabama. Well, I was excited because he goes, the one thing you want to hear from your cameraman, kill it. And I'm like, son of a.
But now it's moved. It's not 17 yards anymore.
Well, when he said kill it, it had started to walk off. And so when I went to draw, I was trying to draw at a consistent, a smooth draw, but it didn't work. Whatever.
Not
he ran
a sudden
off.
movement.
And he didn't run. He didn't know what was up. He ran off and he started feeding. And I'm like, he comes out, I'll kill him. Not. He came out broadside at 50, looked in the field left and right. I waited for him to start eating. I'm like,
calm down.
I think I put my 50 on his heart, and it didn't just shoot over him. He was 3 feet to the left before the arrow got there, and I was like, wow, holy cow, that was quick. And I ended up shooting a doe that night. Same thing, I shot it high. And with that deer, would I have hit it if maybe it wasn't, I hadn't already alerted it?
Maybe. I don't know.
But I know I probably wouldn't take that shot again.
Well, from my experience, so I have the video of my buck that I shot, and I'm in the tree stand, and that thing came to 25 yards. And we have the video of it, and you can see it drop. At 25 yards, and normally, speaking to Brian, he doesn't like to grunt to stop them in position.
I can see why now.
Because then they alert and they're like, okay, and they tense.
Yeah.
And then when they hear the shot, they jump, they duck, they wheel around, whatever. So he prefers not to alert them. But this buck is coming down the path, and I go to full draw on the buck, and he's gonna walk right downwind of us, a couple more feet, and probably smell us. So I'm at full draw. I've got a shot, but this buck is just coming. Like, that's one thing I noticed about these deer, especially it's rut, of course, but with a lot of blacktail, I never see him just abandon caution.
Yeah.
And just walk.
Yeah.
And this buck, he's walking. It's like they're less patient, whitetails. Like, they got a place to go.
Yeah.
And he just marching along, and anyway, comes down, grunts. I take the shot. I put the shot, it's 25 yards. I put my 20 on his heart, expecting him to drop. And he drops.
Yeah, you spined him, didn't you?
A whole foot.
Yeah.
And it hits him right in the back, and he drops. And that broadhead, by the way, which we were using grave diggers, that broadhead has been, I mean, you tell folks in a minute, but from my experience, really, really impressed with that broadhead.
We saw the exit hole on that one I shot.
Dude, it's like the white as my hand.
Yeah, it was as
Wider.
wide as your hand and as long as your hand.
Yep.
Almost 6.5 inches, 6.5 by 4, about the hole. It looked like a gunshot.
When I hit this buck, I hit his femoral because he was just gushing blood. But the drop, we slow motioned it, and you can see, man, 25 yards away. And, he's broadside. It's so much drop in seconds.
You cannot beat the speed of sound.
And he doesn't, by the way, the arrow goes off and he's still standing there.
Yeah.
And you don't see him drop until you see the arrow in the frame about, I'd say, 6 or 7 feet from the deer. You can see the arrow, and then you can see him drop from that point. So he didn't drop as soon as I shot. He dropped like a split second, or at least you couldn't see his movement until the arrow was almost about to impact him. And I couldn't believe. It's like he could hear the arrow coming.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, when you were shooting higher, we were screwing around with the vanes.
Yep, we were.
You were shooting higher profile vanes, and I was shooting the stealths. And, I mean, that's the one thing, like, when I got home, I took that pro drop off my Defiant and put on a DOA. It's just quieter, and it's amazing if you hunt elk your whole life, and you go, let's say you hunt elk 10 years, and you shoot at 8 bulls or whatever, cows, whatever. Mm-hmm. They don't drop much. Drop a little. And then you go hunt, the whitetails, and the kill box is
tiny,
60% smaller, whatever, on these deer. The reaction time is, 5,000% higher. I mean, it's insane. So it's not a big target to begin with. And the grave diggers, we were shooting the same chisel tip head. You were shooting 100s. I had 125s. They did damage. That one I shot corner and away, and it blew out literally all the way through it. It blew out the front shoulder through the scapula and left a hole. Low scapula left a hole the size of your hand in it, and that's when I strapped to the pack. And then the next day,
I think you posted a picture. Did you?
I did, yeah. Not of the hole, but you could see it. But the next day, I shot the doe that ducked, and that went through the spine, out the body, and broke her back leg off. And she obviously just piled over dead. But they were wicked damage on those heads, but.
That was cool.
I'm excited about going back down.
They flew really good, too.
The only thing I would say, if I was going to do anything different, I would probably bring an easy hang bow arm rather than hooking it into the tree stand, just for the simple fact I've gotten used to that, and it's a big deal for me just for how the amount of whitetails I've hunted. I've just gotten so used to that bow being off that easy hanger where I was hooking it in the platform, which a lot of guys prefer. The other thing too, I would probably do different, is I would stay longer because it was really fun.
Me
Those
too.
are the two things I'd change.
I would like to stay longer because it was just a matter of time before a booner came walking by, or Pope and Young buck, just a beautiful buck came by. They're all over out there, but just need a little more time. We got spiked with some seriously hot weather, and that sort of that completely changed their movement pattern, something that Brian hadn't really anticipated or seen before. It was real uncharacteristic. It was like 70 degrees.
It's always a learning aspect from the Kafaru side of things for me too. Brian and I think, are going to be working on a pack soon that he wants for packing a tree stand, a specific system.
So pumped about that.
Yeah, and we can do it
because
no one's ever done it before. What he wants.
And what I was thinking about with that was the other thing that I would do different is I would like to do a climbing stand. Mm-hmm. I would like to, because there were areas where it was like, well, if we set up right there, like 50 yards over, that's where all the busyness is.
And that's what Brian and I did the last day. We did bring in climbers.
Well, that's what happens when I shot my buck.
Yeah.
Where he had the long standing stand versus where we put it.
We had the lock on, yeah.
He had the lock on or hang on.
Yeah. I know, depending upon what part of the world you're from.
Yeah. So it was already set up. Yeah. Well, we went, Brian didn't want to put a stand up in some of those locations right on top of maybe a trail or a feeding area, where there's high deer activity.
Yeah.
Because he didn't know, because sometimes the wind is different, so you want to set up your stand 50 yards on the other side, because you're setting these stands up right on the edge of these deer and their movement.
Yeah.
And it's critical, like if you're, depending on which way the wind is blowing. If they're going to come out into this field and they tend to come through this section, you want to be on the right-hand side, the east side of the field. But if the wind's blowing the other way, then you want to be on the west side of the field.
Which happened every day we were out there.
And so if you hang a stand 2 weeks ahead of time, you don't know what the wind is doing on that particular day.
Well, and it made perfect sense. And you only know what you know, right? I mean, I've used a climber a ton. I had a lone wolf sit and climb forever. But just because you think you're doing something right doesn't mean you are, or well.
Yeah.
And so Brian was like, I need this, and this is why. And I'm watching him. I brought it up this morning here at Cafaro, and they're like, well, don't you just drive around in a four-wheeler? And, I'm like, well, you drive to a point, and then you have to, hike whatever. It's not that far, whatever, 300 to 800 yards. But when you do that every day, twice a day for the entire week, or multiple times, if you're setting the stands for guys, it becomes a pain. And then the other thing, too, is like, well, I'm not going to give away anything else because next thing you know, I'll see the copycat company coming out with one. But I'm excited about working with Brian on that because it's if we just made a whitetail hunting pack, I don't know that we'd sell very many.
Right.
You can use any pack to use but with this, it is very conducive to what we specialize in. And I like that. And I mean, if it helps hunters, like if we're not just building it to build it, right? It's a help with this, which this would be.
Hunters highly value the product.
Yeah, it's a huge thing. And I mean, for this is something after hunting with Brian, I've got 2 tree stands in my hand, carrying them out. My hands are going numb, bow strapped to my pack. I'm like, okay, this sucks.
Yeah.
Where now I'm like, oh yeah, I see the science in it. Yeah. It makes
Well,
sense.
I'm thinking about where I hunt blacktails in 2 or 3 places I hunt blacktails and how I use lone wolf climbing sticks and I hang the stand.
Yeah.
And then, but I've never used a climber before. And a lot of times because the trees in Oregon aren't conducive to a climber because they're like freaky and there's a million branches on them, right? You don't just have this tall, skinny tree. You can just climb straight up.
Yeah.
With the climber, which you need to have no branches,
Well, and that was other things he brought up, talking about screw and tree steps, sticks, which we started picking it apart this morning on, what we would do. And so, my thing was, are people going to pay $450 to $600 for a backpack to hold the climber? And he laughed and he goes, well, that climber's $400. Why wouldn't they? And I was like, yeah, you got a point, And he was like, if a guy just needs a backpack to go and climb into a tree, no. But if a guy is setting, like, let's say, he brought up like pre-setting up stands in the spring, cutting out lanes. He's like, this is perfect for that. You've got everything you need, or in the case of like with what we did, throw the pack in the back with the climber in there. Once we learned that area, which we didn't learn it, but we learned it better.
Yeah.
I would know sitting in one stand every other day and knowing where those deer were crossing. Yeah, I would just move locations.
Completely.
Or in the Field of Dreams,
Dude.
if the wind's altered that night, you just move down and it's easier.
There are so many places that made you more mobile where I'm like, gosh, I would have, had I used a climber like this, which only took me a few seconds to get up the tree, like a minute or two, like a couple minutes. Like literally I strapped it on and I'm boom, boom, boom. I'm up the tree like 25 feet.
Yeah, we went way higher in the climbers than we did those lock-ons.
Yeah, that was the other thing is it's like, well, you just go a little higher because you can.
Yeah.
But I found that I'm thinking back to my spots up there in Oregon, how beneficial that climber would have been because I could have got down in the afternoon after seeing some buck movement and feeling the wind and moved to another spot and just climbed up that tree and really left very little impact on the area. There's no stand, there's no ladder, there's no screw ins, there's not a lot of racket. You just kind of sneak over there. And
it sounds like a squirrel going up and down the tree.
Yeah.
It's not like any major noise.
We had walked in, barely got up the tree, and we were still,
monkeying around.
around, and deer were just coming in after we spooked them out.
Yeah.
They wanted in this area. They wanted in there. But no, dude, I found that I'm really excited about the climber. Get my hands on a climber for some of these places. And if I had a pack, if I had a way to it's like to get in some remote places
Yeah.
with that'd be really nice.
The thing, like if I used it this year where we hunted elk, let's say we packed those in.
How much do they weigh?
Those
16
climbers,
pounds?
18 to 24, depending upon, what it is.
Still
But
pretty heavy.
I would have just used this pack. I would just use the pack we're talking about. You've got the screw and tree steps, your lock on, your sticks, your saw, your all your crap you need to hang. Have my day lunch in there and pack that thing in and got some areas ready. But I would have left the stand in where we were,
Right.
a climber. Because, I mean, honestly, I would have, like when we were hunting, you remember where that one area was where those bulls were coming up. To unscrew all those steps, screw them back in, and move is just not an option when you're elk hunting.
You don't do it because
No.
it's too much time and effort.
But I would have definitely brought the climber over there and just climbed up. So
And you can move from this wallow to that wallow to this trail like that, just on a day you feel like sitting.
yeah, no, it was good. And hunting in Broderick was awesome. But I got to say, like, I knew Broderick was cool. I was not totally prepared for the great Baker Levitt. Baker works for Black Rock Rifle Coffee, Kill Cliff, and some other stuff. But Baker has, I would say, an extreme case of ADHD, which is attention deficit hyperactive disorder. He just says he's funny. Now, I can see how he could irritate people, but he's my kind of people. I thought he was awesome. But he was talking about Pandora's Box or Pan's Labyrinth, and he's like, that one thing, and it's got eyeballs in its hand. He's like, you know what you do with an animal like that? You know how you kill it, right? And we're eating dinner. Like, he's serious. I'm like, how? He's like, you burn it.
You burn it.
Yeah. He's like, that's how you kill something like that. And but yeah, he was a nut, but he's super, super good dude. He was funny.
That was fun. I just got to say that that we got spotted in the tree so many times. It's just a different animal, man. Because I will say this, blacktail, I almost never get caught.
Yeah, they don't look up very much.
No. And when I got spotted, it was the last day actually.
Yeah.
This
Spotted by a spike.
65 yards out, and this spike comes walking out, and I'm up against the tree, and my head is back, and I'm like, I am one with the tree.
Yeah.
And that spike's walking along, and he just looks up there, and he takes a double take, and he pins me, and he walks up there, and he just will not stop staring at me.
I'm telling you, it's because you didn't have camo face paint on.
Dude, that's the only explanation, right? Like,
think about
the only thing is like sometimes I'll wear my hat down, or I'd have my Fanatic hoodie, like face thing up covering.
Yep.
But a lot of them looked me in the face and didn't spot me.
Yeah.
Throughout the week.
Yeah.
But it only takes once or twice for them to see your face and then to recognize it as a face. And that thing, there's no question, it's on my face.
Yeah. Now that's why I wear camo face paint. I mean, Broderick was giving me crap about it, but I need all the help I can get as much as I move around in the tree stand. Yeah, they definitely. I mean, there was a couple different things that, like, we could whisper back and forth, and the sound didn't carry. They couldn't hear.
I was very surprised at how much we could talk.
But there was other things that you could not do, movement being the main one,
Mm-hmm.
but also certain noises. Like I ticked my tree stand with my cam, and they picked that up. Giant clumps of mud calling off my boots. They didn't look at that at all.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Like, there was a couple times where every move I made, it sounded like dirt was just raining down. They never lift up their head.
Yeah.
And I asked Broderick about that, and he's like, yeah, dude, it just sounds like a squirrel dropping stuff.
Yeah, and I get like that metal tick. I mean, obviously common sense. Immediately I'm like, well, that's a human sound, and the other one's but still you'd think they'd look.
Yeah.
And they didn't look over. And then again, I mean, we were talking like this. Yeah. And then we had deer 30
Right
yards
underneath
from
us.
us
Yeah.
and didn't care. But I will say I saw 3 or 4 tanks when I was down there, all on the move and moving fast, not away from us, on a doe, whatever, and chasing after does or whatever the case may be. And the thing, I mean, yeah, like you said, matter of time. Eventually, you would have had one come in front of you. We had plenty of bucks come in front of us.
Yeah.
I specifically, I had a pile of little deer little bucks come in front of me. I think you saw in that one
Yeah,
video. I
yeah.
had several, but the thing is I'm really trying to be as cognizant as I could of not shooting something 3.5 or younger. Now,
Which there are some pretty 3-year-olds bucks
that one
out
that
there.
he said kill it. Like when it walked up, I was like, if Brian was not in the tree with me, I would probably shoot that. So then when he said kill it, I was like, but it was like 115 ish,
Yeah,
I don't know, whatever
yeah.
it was, 115, 120 inch 8-point. But he's like, brother, when it's on film, that adds 10, 15 inches. And it would have been in your face because the tree stands were set up on a hill. And, my tree is here, and that deer's walking straight up, and it's 17 yards from my tree, and it's looking up. So basically, its entire chest, like if it was flat ground, I wouldn't have had as much exposed. Right. But he's basically looking around. He knows something's going on, but he can't pick it out.
Yeah.
He stood there for like 20 seconds.
Yeah.
And that's what finally, at the end of it, Broderick was like thinking probably he was going to wait. Because I was knocked on, and I was locked up.
So close.
But I didn't. But me being an idiot, I watched him come from 100 yards out. Well, farther than that. I should have just been at full draw just in case, but I wasn't.
You don't know. And that's the thing is Wes, bless his heart.
Wes passed up a tank.
Wesley Smith, he came to help film. And so after I shot a buck, I was like, okay, there's another day left, an evening and a morning. I was like, let's let Wes get out there and shoot a doe, and but he had the green light to shoot a buck as long as it was just
a good buck,
a great buck, a big mature buck. So that night, Wes has one of the bigger bucks, approaching 140 inch whitetail, comes in, I think it's 20 yards.
It was close
for like 20 minutes. And Wes doesn't shoot it because he's not sure if it's big enough.
And Broderick's trying to get me a buck. And that night we saw like 2 deer.
Yeah.
And you guys had bucks all over you.
Oh, that night I saw, what did I say, 6, 7 bucks that were like 3-4 year old bucks.
Yep.
I showed you the picture of that one. I showed it to Broderick too. He's like, it's going to be a nice deer next year.
Yeah.
A really nice deer. But man, I just think that it's a super neat place to hunt. Alabama, they were describing how often these deer are shot at, and you could tell just by the way they're all keyed up.
Dude, Friday morning.
And just scanning the trees.
Oh, yeah, it sounded like the North was invading the South again.
There's so many gunshots on the weekend.
Oh, man. He's like, you notice the difference between a Monday or a Friday and a Wednesday, don't you? Because we heard like 9 shots on a Friday, and I think I heard 1 shot on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
A lot of pigs dying, a lot of deer dying. A lot of does getting shot. So that's the other thing. In Oregon, you get a tag. You can shoot a white-tailed or a black-tailed doe or a buck. You get one.
Yeah.
One. You can choose either or.
You
a lot of times.
A doe a day in Alabama.
And that's the difference.
Yeah.
Like, so I think a lot of deer in Oregon, for example, they're just, they just don't get the pressure because, especially does, a lot of people are holding out for a buck, so the does just don't get shot at as much.
Well,
these does are like, they know they're just meat for the table.
I was just gonna say, it's like somebody like a Somalian or a Chechnyan or something is an Alabama deer compared to an American. A doe has seen combat from birth, right? That thing's been shot at everywhere, and then you take a blacktail. Maybe no one shoots. No, not no one. Very few people shoot doe.
Yeah,
they're not shot at as much as bucks.
Maybe, and if they are shot at, it's usually the time they die.
Exactly. Where these does, they know the deal. Like they're like, you're not going to catch me slipping that one. It's walking in, and a squirrel runs out, and it looks at the squirrel, and the squirrel takes off, and it keeps looking, and you can tell it's like, I've been caught slipping before here, and it takes another step, and I'm like, the wind's in our face. The doe came from way out, so it hasn't looked. Otherwise, it's going to keep looking up at us if it picked off moving.
Yeah,
it's ready to get killed, so it knows like it's paying attention.
Yep. I just, man, it was super cool. Tell me this, how does that compare to Kansas?
Oh, it depends on where I've hunted in Kansas, but with in Kansas.
You guys were saying the deer in Kansas were dumber.
Yeah, I don't want to piss off anyone from Kansas, but yeah, I would say the Kansas deer where I've hunted them are dumb.
Lower IQ? Or just
think
they haven't been shot at. They haven't been in combat since birth.
I just don't think they're shot at as much. I would say, and this is completely my own opinion and a guess, in Kansas, people don't hunt does as much as Alabama. This is from just talking to people.
Alabama, if it's brown, it's down.
Kansas, there's pigs a lot more pigs in Alabama than Kansas, too. Kansas is known worldwide as a trophy hunting giant whitetail mecca, right?
Right.
Alabama is definitely not known for that. So I think when you're trophy hunting something, you're not shooting very much. And so those big bucks, as they get older and older, they're not learning as much as a buck that's hearing gunshots 24/7. Now, people can get on here and say I'm wrong. I'm just saying
you're
from
guessing.
my limited experience.
Yeah.
Which I've hunted whitetails 6 times in Kansas, not a ton, but I mean, I've snort wheezed multiple bucks in Kansas. They come in on a string.
I'm really curious to ask Mark Kenyon at Wired to Hunt, because he's hunting Michigan, which I assume is somewhat similar to Alabama in the sense that they're just
the
shot.
Nuge up there. He gets shot at by AK-47s by him. But yeah, I mean, I just think that look at it at elk, okay? If you go on a public land elk hunt and you blow a bugle and it's not perfect time, they run the other way.
Right.
Okay, you go on a
ranch,
pick anywhere, and you blow a bugle, you shut the door, you'll shock bugle them like they're coming, and because it's trophy managed. It's where you get shot.
All about
at.
education,
Not
necessarily IQ.
Yeah, exactly. They've been educated. More so different than humans. I mean, you go home every day and you don't put the dish away. You get to shit. I was doing so good this podcast. You get the crap slapped out of you. You're going to start putting the dishes away. Okay, in reverse, you come out and make a scene and you don't pay attention to your surroundings. You get an arrow flung at you. You're going to be pretty alert when you come in and paying attention to detail.
Yeah.
It's no different. So.
Tell me this before we wrap up. What was your favorite moment on this Alabama whitetail hunt? Or favorite part of it?
Man, that is the one night Broderick and I got pinned down in the stand. As far as like time sitting in the stand, I think I heard probably 20 buck grunts and like 13 snort wheezes.
Was that the first day?
No, that was the last night.
Oh, okay.
And we could hear bucks going at it back and forth. It is dark. There's like I don't know how many black spots below me. I didn't shoot anything, didn't have anything in range. I mean, other than a spike and a doe, but I mean nothing, no bucks. But it was funny because we're sitting in there and you can hear these this bucks just go crazy, and it's fun talking to Broderick. He's hunted quite a bit, and he's you'd never guess he's killed as much as he has,
more than we ever have.
And he's just like, oh yeah, hunted back up there, 1989. He's really very mellow, right? So, but he's going to Alberta with us this year, I think. So
that'll be awesome.
Yeah.
I think my highlight it was hugely rewarding to shoot that buck. And definitely a pinnacle of the trip. Get my first whitetail buck. I mean, it's pretty cool. But the best part for me was actually the first day, that first morning when we climbed in that stand.
Yeah.
Got up there. There were deer running everywhere.
Yeah.
Running through the woods, chasing each other. And there was a big buck. Broderick said it was the biggest buck that we saw that week. I think he was 140-something, 150.
Yeah.
It was a huge whitetail buck running through the trees chasing this doe. When I saw his antlers, they were completely white.
Yeah.
And thrashed on the front, and they curved, and they almost touch in the front. And I'm like, and I see that deer, and he's like, shoot her. And from that, I mean, first morning, first day, and you get to see a deer like that, and then there's grunting and wheezing all over in the trees right behind us.
Yeah.
And we heard that all morning, and they kept running by, and that buck never stopped long enough for me to get a shot.
Yeah. Well, and here's the difference between Kansas and Alabama right here. Yeah. People can say on TV you don't snort, wheeze, or grunt at a buck when it's wet, but you get a buck chasing a doe, in my opinion, in Kansas, I'm snort wheezing, and it's coming, and I'm going to kill it. I've killed multiple that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not at one time would I ever snort wheeze in Alabama at a buck again because I tried it and it ran the other way. Same snort wheeze I use in Kansas. It's not like I changed calls.
Yeah.
And so you know what I mean when you get just like a bugle. And again, I'm not a whitetail expert, but I've done that multiple times in Kansas and Nebraska. Dude, they lock up and they turn like, oh, really? You're going to snort wheeze at me and come, where this one was like, ah, and he just took off. So a little bit different, obviously. Plus, you know, snort wheezing out of a tree isn't the smartest thing in the world when they're that close. But I think Broderick's right. You just don't do that unless it's a last resort.
No, I that's what I think too. It was just neat though that first morning to see a buck of that caliber. And then that ruined me for the rest of the trip. Like, when that buck came out that we were going to shoot, he's like, shoot her. And I turn around and I see it, and I'm like, ooh, it's really pretty whitetail buck. And I'm excited, but I'm like, is that one okay? Because it's a lot smaller than the one on that first day.
Yeah.
And that was what he wanted, was the one, like the first day, he asked us not to shoot bucks like this. But like you said, dude, it's on camera. It's sort of like us when we're hunting elk and stuff or Alberta mule deer.
Yeah.
The first day it's 200-inch or bust.
Yeah.
And then the second day it's 180.
185,
and then it drops down to 100 inches really quick.
Well, and that's the thing too is getting and we got to wrap this up pretty quick. But one thing you and I talked about being unable to do a lot of these hunts. We're getting older and getting more financially stable, or at least hunting stable. And for me, it's not the last time you're going to get to go. Where any hunt I'd ever been on before, I got once and that was it. And, you know, taking home, you know, obviously, you want to bring the meat home, and you want the experience. And goal oriented guy, want to kill an animal.
Which we got a lot of meat coming from Alabama.
Yeah, and so, but now, I didn't shoot everything I saw, for one, which I could have. I kind of looked at it, especially being able to hunt, hopefully down there again.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. As I say that, I would have shot the crap out of that fork and horn the last day, and all I was thinking was that the sausage she had cooked the day before. That's right down the road. I'm like, that's even more meat. But it was fun because you can kind of trophy hunt down there.
Yeah.
You know, there's a good chance you can see a big
But
buck.
I think you're right. Like, I've thought about it a lot. Because we'll probably go back and hang with Broderick again.
Yeah.
And hunt in that February rut time. It's like, it's not over. It's not a once in a lifetime hunt for us.
Yep.
We'll probably do it again. Yeah. And that's neat. So it takes some of that pressure off to where you're like, you know, I mean, when you go to Northwest Territories and it's a once in a lifetime deal.
Yeah.
You really hate to leave without, but if you're going to go once or twice, 3 times, you know, in the next few years, it's a lot different.
Yep. Yeah, it is. Yeah, and
it's an enviable position to be in.
Very lucky to be able to
feel grateful for that.
Yeah, very, very much so. But we should probably lock it up. A customer just came in and wants to look at the teepee behind us here.
All right. Well, folks, thanks for listening to the Gritty Bowmen. Stay gritty.
Stay gritty.